Hello, everybody. My name is Joel Filderman, and welcome to the Dog Trainers Connection. I'm not a dog trainer, but these other people you see here are. We get together, we have a discussion of a topic, we come up with some thoughts, some ideas, and sometimes some answers, but we always have an interesting discussion. And well, I think it's finally time to switch it up a little bit. We've discussed about staying in with the virus and the pandemic and et cetera. So I want to talk more about outside today since we're getting to the warmer weather. And I particularly want to talk about exercising dogs, but I want to talk about it from an interesting perspective. What I want to talk about today is there was a study last year, at the end of the last year, where they said that the age of dogs is not what it has always been considered. It's a study out of the University of California in San Diego, their School of Medicine. And what they are saying is that you have to factor in a certain mathematical formula, and that's how you come up with the age for the dog. For example, a 1-year-old dog is now considered 31 years old. According to this study, a 2-year-old dog is now considered 42 years old. And what I really found interesting is that a 5-year-old dog is now considered almost 57 years old. So does that mean that as trainers, you need to start telling your clients that they need to watch the age of their dog? What they've found is that it's a genetic thing and that there are chemicals that basically surround the DNA. What that does is it turns off certain genomes. So my question is, what as a layperson, as somebody who doesn't really, know the full study and et cetera, I started thinking from a dog trainer's perspective. So does that mean that if you're over exercising the dog, and that's why it's getting its ACL torn and not being able to repair it, is it genetic or is it just that's what it is? Steve, why don't you start today?
Oh boy. It's a little loaded. It's, because as a dog trainer, I think when we approach the case, you get to see what you have. I mean, so if I had a let's take a pug. I love to pick on the pug because, a pug isn't going to be doing any wild stuff at any age, right? And we could look at Irish setters and we could say they're ready for wild stuff until they fall down, right? I mean, they
Right.
just go. So, I mean, do I want to really start factoring in? I mean,
Well, and before you go any further, Steve, I should mention that this was a limited study. It was only done with Labrador retrievers. They're planning on doing more. The reason that they use a Labrador retriever is they found that the age span was equivalent to a human's life, that the lifespan for an average Labrador retriever was equivalent to an average human. So,
I find that interesting. But I mean, we could basically shoot for 1 minute to the sterilization study from UC Davis that was done on golden retrievers.
mm-hmm.
And then when they started to open the study up, they found that the findings were much different as they started to look at the different breeds. They weren't the same for all. And my guess is that the age study will be similar. Because small breed dogs mature at a much faster rate than large breed dogs. So we would tell a Maltese owner that you can probably expect your male intact Maltese to start lifting his leg probably by the time he's like 7, maybe 8 months old. Yet you're not going to get a new feeder to lift his leg until he's 18 months old, maybe. So the bigger that they're destined to be, the slower the maturation rate, and I think you have to kick that in.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to injuries based on those factors, um, I think there's so many other factors that come into play as far as the healing process. So, and this, I would sort of, my analogy to this would be that the neural pathways kind of close on socialization by about 18 weeks of age.
Okay.
But that doesn't stop us from socializing dogs that are beyond 18 weeks of age and making some, maybe not making the same progress, but making progress with them. So I'm thinking in medical terms, why would it be much different, right? Well, maybe maybe an older dog wouldn't heal as quickly as a puppy, but I don't think that we're looking at older dogs that need procedures as dogs that are not going to heal.
Okay.
Maybe take a little bit longer. So,
Right.
that's kind of my pitch. I don't know if I can pay that much attention to that right now.
Okay. Bonnie, do you think that it needs to affect the way a trainer looks at the dog and looks at the exercise of the dog?
If they're finding that a dog 1 year old is a lot older than a 7 year old human, and that a 5 or 6 year old dog is equivalent to a 60 year old,
Mm-hmm.
or in
Close
that
enough. Yep.
in that range, or late 50s, um, and of course there needs to be more study done on more breeds,
Sure.
on more variables. But I would think that I might tell a client, don't do limit your agility to an hour instead of 2 hours, or don't hike up a hill with your dog, or do some kind of very intense exercise, because your dog might be at risk for an injury and it's not that great for their bodies.
Mm-hmm.
I think, and then what came to mind was that if somebody is enjoying their dog and their dog wants to go on long hikes with them or run alongside their bike and seems to be okay, and the person enjoys it and the dog willingly does it, are you going to tell that person to stop that enjoyable behavior
Sure.
because maybe you're making your 60-year-old dog run alongside your bike
Well, it's
in
no
hot
different than
weather and in
no different than a 60-year-old person saying don't ride the bike because you might get injured.
right, right,
So
right.
yeah.
But I think if they really find out that it's this standard of 1 year to 7 years in a human is not necessarily the case, I think that it is really good information for dog trainers to have.
Okay. And Jeff, would this change how you would look at dogs if this is true? I saw you laughing when I said it originally, so
Just trying to wrap my head around this. No, it doesn't change anything for me. Nothing.
okay.
Not a damn thing. These people need to get themselves around some dogs. That's what they need to do.
Okay.
I don't know what their goal here is. I mean, dogs are individuals. I mean, I've had 12-year-old pits that needed more exercise because they weren't getting enough. I've had young dogs that walk around the block. That's all they need. Breed notwithstanding. I mean, we can get into breed stuff.
Sure.
Everything I do is an individual dog thing. They are a dog before they are a breed to me. And they tell me what I need to know.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? My only caution with exercise, obviously age-related health is a factor for sure, but I don't think that's a breed thing. That's just an age-related health factor for the dog that we are working, right? I think a detriment to some dogs, particularly larger breed dogs, is the substrate they are being exercised on when they're young.
Sure.
I think that could be catastrophic. Large breeds on pavement. And so even when I'm walking client, even any dog for that matter, I always tell them, try to keep them on the grass. It's a little softer on the joints.
Okay.
But hiking and stuff like Bonnie was saying, I think that's great for dogs. I mean, hiking and hills, like it fits their body. That's like, they were designed to like walk on that stuff. They weren't designed to run on blacktop for 6 miles.
Mm-hmm.
right? They just weren't. So, I mean, and exercise is such a huge role in what all dog trainers profess to their clients, right? I mean, think, if everyone just exercised and socialized their dogs properly, we wouldn't even be talking right now because there'd be no need for us, you know?
Okay.
But yeah, I don't know. Yeah,
But we also, sorry, Jeff, but what came to mind was also there's other forms of enrichment, quote unquote, to use that term, that doesn't have to be physical exercise in that way.
Yeah, of course.
In running, hiking.
Yeah, dogs that can't exercise still need stimulation, right? If there's a health issue or an age-related issue, recreational chews, puzzle toys, games around the house. I mean, we can get creative with that.
Nose work.
Yeah, yes, breed-specific work, sure, absolutely.
No, I said nose work.
Yeah, you said nose work. I agreed and said breed-specific
Oh,
work.
okay.
Because that expands to other breeds who aren't necessarily inclined for nose work.
Right.
But yeah, it's, I don't know. I talk about dogs' age. People say, "Oh, how old's your dog?" I say 5. They say, "How old is that in dog years?" I say 5.
Okay. Okay. And that certainly is a valid point. That certainly is a valid point.
I want to think they should do a study, like, do my dogs look at me and be like, I wonder how old he is in dog years.
David, would it affect you at all?
No, I don't think it would affect me much either because, I equate it to humans in a way, even though we're genetically wired differently and everything else, it's very similar. I mean, you look at a marathon runner, for instance.
Sure.
You see some marathon runners that they've gone up to 90 years old and they're able to finish a marathon at a decent pace, that they're actually jogging, whatever. And you get some 30 or 40-year-olds, they can barely crack 10 miles or whatever, even no matter how much training they do. It's just what it is, or they start breaking down from arthritis or whatever. And getting to, as far as the age thing, to a certain degree, if you have some owner that you're working with and their dog is jumping on off the, permit it, you may want to say, hey, listen, the dog is under 8 months old, the dog is still developing, you don't want to hurt the joints and things like that until the dog is more or less fully developed.
But if you do that with a younger dog who, when they're developing those joints, would you consider doing that with a middle-aged dog who is, at least according to this study, is possibly older than you think they are?
Not necessarily, because as long as they're healthy, that's fine. I mean, look at arthritis. They've done studies on this, and it was a very big controversy where they're saying you really shouldn't be running or should limit your running for running arthritis. And I would assume, I can't be for sure, that it wouldn't be much different arthritis in a dog or human. And it actually helps to lubricate the joints, your bone stronger, etc. So as long as you're able to do it, the only thing caveat I may put in there is like what Jeff was kind of alluding to, maybe the surface. Maybe you don't want to run on hard surfaces all the time. Or maybe with a dog, maybe not, rather than going the dog's used for an hour walk every day, maybe it's an hour walk every other day. And the days in between, maybe it's only a half-hour walk or whatever. Or maybe it's on a softer surface. And then getting back to mental stimulation, because we all know mental stimulation will trump the every time, with the exception, I guess, of course, if you really, really exert them physically. But for the most part, for the most part, there's other ways. If the dog is starting to age a little bit, and from watching the body and language and what the dog is telling you, panting, etc., you can reduce some of the issues, whatever it might be, through mental stimulation, nose work, find it, whatever it might be, enrichment, basically.
Okay.
Here's a point about, we should talk about the difference between forced exercise, right? Or if you're playing. So if you're throwing the ball, I mean, is this the kind of thing where, go, go, go dog, you know what I mean? I got a bloodhound on a track, 95 degrees, the dog's working. I know cop stories of dogs dropping dead, but they're being, on some level, there's a force involved in that. Even though they would say to me, a bloodhound tracks until it drops just because that's the bloodhound. But I'm saying, I'll bet if you weren't going like search, in the heat, the dog might take a break. that's just me thinking that, the cops will say, no, no, that dog, it was a self-induced thing. And I'm like, I don't think so.
Hmm.
I mean, I know too many police dogs that conked out dead from being worked in the heat for too long, forced exercise. If you go out and throw the ball around and the dog, takes a look at you and says, you chase it next time, it's done. It's done. Game over, right? Boom. So, that would be me. If you're gonna try and mess with this at any age, let the dog decide when it's like conked and stop, right? I don't know.
Yeah, and that's what it comes down to, reading the dog's body language and understanding, because obviously we all know it's pretty common sense that they can't tell us how they're feeling. Whereas a human, if we feel like we're getting on the tired side, hey, we gotta listen to your own body. They can't listen. They listen to their own body, so to speak.
It's us. They can
Right.
listen to their own bodies. It's on us.
Well, they can, but right. That's what I mean. Right.
I just wanted to, I know Joyce, you need to chime in here, but I was, hey Joyce, I was just thinking that it's interesting because before the studies came out about early sterilization, it was like, spay and neutered the dog at 2 months old, no big deal, this or that. And, everybody thought that was okay to do with dogs. And then studies came out
Sure.
that probably were limited. And it got people thinking about, maybe we need to rethink this for the health of the dog. So I just think it's interesting that maybe 5 years from now, we might have to rethink the age of the dog if we really know it's not the 1 to 7 formula that's kind of been ingrained in all of us for a long time. So I just find it interesting that down the road, it might shape advice that dog trainers give their clients.
What do you mean by the 1 to 7 formula?
1 year equals 7 years of dog.
Oh,
1 year of dog equals 7 years of human.
I thought you meant you could only exercise from 1 to 7 years of age. Oh, okay.
Old. I mean, after the 1 to 7 came, the first 3 were 10.
Yeah.
5 were 3. They had this whole
Sure.
right. And now it's just the latest is.
Well, it's relatively complicated formula. It has something to do with what the heck's the word? I can't think of it. It's gone totally out of my head.
Not
anyway.
the genomes.
No. The formula, the mathematical formula. It's
okay.
LO something, and I can't think of the mathematical term.
Okay.
Whatever it is.
Maybe Joyce knows it.
Nope. Joyce doesn't know it. Joyce is like, math? Nope.
I'm good at math, but I don't know what that is.
What do you think about all this, Joyce? Do you think that age, and if the age formula has changed where dogs are older than we thought they were, does that make any difference as a trainer?
Nope.
Nope.
Doesn't make one bit of difference. And Jeff said it. He was very clear about it. Each dog is an individual. I mean, I have dogs that are 3-4 months that blew their ACL for some reason. I have other dogs that are mid-age that have blown ACLs. I mean, dogs have injuries for various reasons. You can't dictate all the time when that's going to happen or who it's going to happen to, especially not based off of some formula that says, oh geez, a 1-year-old dog is equal to a 7-year-old human. I don't really think it. I don't give any of that any thought when I'm working with a dog. I just look at the dog and say, okay, this is what we have right now. What does the dog like? What does the dog need? And we go from there. So it's really, to me, it's useless. I know dog owners will enjoy fretting over it and worrying about it, but
Sure.
For me, it doesn't do anything for me.
And they did read that there were possible medical factors that are involved in why they're doing this, that they're looking for a way to slow down aging and things to that effect.
Right.
So there's that possibility as well. Logarithm, that's the word. And it's a logarithm plus plus 31 or something like that. You multiply it by 16 and then add 31 or something like that, if I remember right.
Jeff said it best. These people need to hang around with some dogs.
So math ain't it, huh?
Well, I was going to say in this pandemic, for the trainers that aren't, for the people that aren't going out to do exercise, and maybe the trainers who still aren't going out, they're figuring out different ways to get everybody exercised.
Okay.
Owners and the dogs.
That's it. The clients. I mean, it's hard to get the clients to go out and take I mean, that's been a struggle, right? I mean, people don't want to, I think we talked about this last time. I tell them, but put them on a long line, let the dogs say hello, and you can stay where you are. But at least let the dog make friends. The dog needs that. So, I mean, we've been over this a zillion times. I mean, right? We know this. It's that, I don't know, people don't pay attention or something like that. We do our best.
Mm-hmm. So let me end today with this. Is there any advice that you as trainers want to give to people who are watching this about exercising your dogs other than go do it?
I would say, obviously, health is always your primary concern.
Okay.
Weather is a huge consideration because it's not just the heat, but dogs can dehydrate very quickly in very cold weather as well. Aside from the common cold weather risks, so they do have to be careful with that. Little things like pavement, touch the pavement with the back of your palm.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Simple stuff like that, but you gotta trust your dog. If your dog looks like she or he has some energy to burn, throw the ball around the yard. Take a walk. If it's raining, do some fetch in the house. I mean, I'm not crazy about having dogs play in the house. I'm all about the house is calm, but you know what? If you need to be creative and flexible, you do that.
Sure.
But people know their dogs. I mean, we joke around a lot and we all have issues with owner compliance. No one knows their dogs better than the owners. So they have to trust their intuition.
Okay. Anybody else want to chime in on that?
I mean, I'll kick in one. If you live in the city and you want to go out on the street, I tell my clients to put their hand flat down on the sidewalk and hold it there for a few minutes just to see how hot it really is. Not go like this. Hold it down. If you plan on going for a walk with your dog, hold your hand there for a while and see how hot does it really get before you decide to take your dog out on that hot pavement and go. That's the only thing I tell them in the heat, more or less. That's the story. Most of them have, I think, enough common sense to not overdo it with their dogs in the heat. A lot of my clients, they can't do it themselves, so, I mean, I don't have to worry. They're not fit enough, and, nor will the dog be probably, but that's for each of us, the burden for us all, I guess, right?
Sure. Anybody else?
Just fit the exercise to the dog. It's like everybody's been saying, if you have a dog that doesn't like to go running, then don't try to force them to go running. If you have a dog that doesn't like to jump in the swimming pool, don't toss them in the pool and try to make them, make them swim. Just watch, read your dog, listen to them, and do stuff that they enjoy. And then, of course, keep an eye on them. And in hot weather, it's you want to keep an eye on them for overheating, of course, and in cold weather, you want to make sure that nothing's getting cold. But I mean, just smart stuff, just some common sense. But I think the biggest one I see is people trying to make their dogs do things because they want to do it and not the dog wants to do it. And that becomes if your dog is stressed or not enjoying the exercise, of course, injury is more possible because they're resisting against doing what you're trying to make them do. So,
interesting point. Yeah.
Reasonable.
Yeah, the only thing I would add to all this is just maybe you could suggest something like a musher's wax or something like that. It's not a cure by any means, but just to help to dissipate some of the heat and when it's warm out on the pavement and when it's snowing out, of course. This way, if they do want to take the dog out and the dog they don't want to put booties on the dog or what have you.
Yeah.
It can help with the snow clumping in between the pads and things like that, and the rock salt and stuff. It helps with that. So
Okay.
no, it's not a hey, you put that on, then you can do anything you want with the dog. That's not
It's
what
not
I'm
a
suggesting.
cure-all.
I'm not suggesting that by any means.
Yep.
So.
Good.
I would love to do a whole talk on those booties that you're talking about someday.
Okay. Bonnie, you got anything to add?
Just that, a walk with an old dog who doesn't want to go far and a person who doesn't want to go far just is very satisfying, just to have the dog sniff, and just a slow sniffing walk, I think, is terrific for the person and the dog.
The dog sniffing, I'm assuming, but
Yeah,
anyway.
well,
Anyway.
boy, you guys, last week Helen said something about me meeting a client on the road. You guys are very creative.
All right. Well, that's very good advice from our trainers, and that's a good place to stop. I would like to thank you all for being here today. I'd like to thank everybody for watching. And don't forget to check out our webpage, www.dogtrainersconnection.com. And don't forget to like us on Facebook. And please don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. And thank you again, folks. And we'll see you next time. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.